Question here, what does all of this mean? I do want to talk more about that. We're going to bring in Glenn Ignazio, a former Air Force Special Operations pilot. He's also a national security expert. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Always good to see you again, Josh.
Good to see you. And first off, want to ask, for folks who don't necessarily know all of this, can you break down kind of the basics of what U.S. Space Command and the Space Force really are and what they do?
Sure. I mean, the United States Air Force for the longest time has taken care of both what's going on within the atmosphere, aircraft, everything you can imagine, plus this space as far as their satellites operations. GPS satellites are actually flown by the United States Space Force now. So the Air Force used to control that. What happened was in the transition of realizing that upper domain outside the atmosphere, space completely is going to get its own command, its own service, and that's what the Space Force has become. They are basically in charge of anything that is flying outside the atmosphere, our satellites, our detection satellites, both offensive, defensive in nature. Again, our GPS satellites. So everybody that gets GPS in the world, guess what? Those satellites are provided to you by the U.S. Air Force Space Force. So that's what they contain. They also deal with a lot of things from electronic warfare to cyber, but that's what that Space Force and command mainly focuses on to make sure that we can launch satellites, and even when we launch our manned rockets, that they're not going to hit some kind of space junk as they're getting out into the atmosphere, out of the atmosphere.
Are there any, just in your experience and your expertise here, any issues with the national security that are posed by this? We read that statement from the Colorado governor. He said that it is a national security issue. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so we're gonna take this as I always take it is get rid of the politics, right? So what's going to happen is it's going to take this transition from Colorado to Alabama. That's going to probably take, honestly, it'll probably take close to 4 years. But what will happen is they'll duplicate the sites to make sure that everything's working and operating, and slowly transition operations. They'll run them in parallel and then actually cut it. So to say that it's going to diminish any kind of national security assets, no. To turn a switch off and then switch on another day or even another hour later would be detrimental to our security. So no, it doesn't do that. In addition, you saw, and the statements are actually true, was the Air Force decided to move it to Alabama. The GAO, or Government Accounting Office, I think is what it stands for, also judged it. So it was decided to do this. And then the Biden administration, they kept it in Colorado, and now it's going back to Alabama. But yes, the original decision was to go to Alabama in the first place.
And we are taking a live look here over the Capitol. Lawmakers not discussing this, but they are in session right now after that August recess, and they are discussing a variety of issues. One thing I did want to ask, because you were just kind of touching on this, but does moving Space Command impact operational readiness or strategic deterrence in any way at all?
I honestly, I think what it really does is it impacts the military lives, the economic areas of where they're located in Colorado. There's a lot of history in Colorado because that's where you saw Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD from the Cold War and so forth operate. And now it's going to go to Alabama. But here's one of the things, as we talked about the Golden Dome and everything that's coming up, is that United States Army's Missile and Missile Defense Command is actually located in Huntsville, and including its Marshall Space Center that's also supporting NASA's flight operations. So moving to Alabama actually puts the Space Force and the Army closer together, so that a lot of the detection satellites, and now with the Army, if the Army or the Space Force is going to operate it, they're closely connected. So it actually would be better. But again, it's going to take a transition. There's always obstacles and turbulence, but I believe that actually be benefit. It's actually cheaper to operate it in Alabama as well.
Existing infrastructure that kind of plays into what's being done there with Space Command, Colorado versus Alabama, is there a way to really compare? What does one have that maybe the other doesn't, or, vice versa?
Sure. Colorado, of course, has a lot of history, and that's where the Space Center is right now. And they deal with a lot of different things from, down in Florida. Also, you have Vandenberg Space Force Base on the West Coast where they launch all the satellites and SpaceX. But there's been a lot of history, a lot of tremendous infrastructure that's already been built into Colorado Springs. And there's probably a couple thousand companies that actually work there and supply and support a lot of the aerospace functions. But this, as far as Space Force is concerned, is going to move to Alabama. Again, the facilities bases that are available in Alabama are greater than in Colorado Springs. There's just more opportunities there. Economically, Colorado Springs is much more expensive. So again, benefits are going to Huntsville. It's cheaper. It's going to save about 400 and something million over the future here. So there is a difference in that transition. So again, economically, you are disrupting military families that'll move. You are disrupting an economy of a state that is benefiting another state. So again, politics and people, it is definitely an impact. But national security, no, we'll be able to maintain that, and possibly with that connection with the Army, it may actually be better down there.
All right. Glenn Ignacio, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and break it all down. Anything we missed? Obviously, there's a lot to this, but anything we missed, anything you want to add before I let you go?
I think we hit it right because, like I said, there's a lot of politics. Colorado's going to be unhappy at losing it. Alabama is going to be happy and gaining it. And it's just looking at what the reality is. And again, the Air Force and the analysis to do this operationally is what made this change. So we have to ignore the politics. And hopefully that's what people find. But it's difficult regardless.
Glenn, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Take care, Josh.
And you are taking a lot.